Chosen one. You've felt it, haven't you? That cold shift in the atmosphere. The silence when people walk in and suddenly stop talking. That strange tension in the room, like you were being watched, measured, discussed. But no one ever said your name aloud. But now I'm going to say what they wouldn't. You were summoned, not by mistake, not by coincidence, but by forces, both human and not, that recognized who you are and what you carry. There's a spiritual courtroom, and your name is written on the docket. You were called not to be judged, but to be revealed, because what you've survived, what you've endured in silence, what they thought they buried in secret, it's about to come to light, and when it does, an empire falls. Chosen one. You weren't imagining things when you felt like something was happening behind your back. The whispers, the delays, the strange coincidences, the gut feelings that wouldn't leave you alone. That was the summons. But it didn't come with paperwork, no warning, no invitation. Why? Because they needed you unaware. They knew the moment you walked into that divine courtroom fully awake, with your discernment, your authority, your anointing, the entire illusion they built around lies would come crashing down like a tower made of glass. You are not just someone who got lucky. You are a key witness in a case that stretches beyond earthly laws. You are holding evidence in your memory, your soul, your DNA. And the moment you speak, even without realizing it, the courtroom of the spirit activates. Let me put it this way. Imagine a secret bunker, hidden beneath layers of concrete. Inside, a group of people in suits, smiling in public, but scheming in private, holding meetings under flickering lights, saying your name like a curse. And now imagine this. One of those people wakes up in a cold sweat, not because you showed up, but because something else did. An energy, a presence, a force they can't explain but can't deny. Why? Because you weren't forgotten. You were hidden until the courtroom needed fire. See, the divine doesn't send invitations by mail. It sends them through pressure, through betrayal, through moments where you thought, why is this happening to me? That was the summons, not to break you, but to position you, because they didn't just underestimate you, they overplayed their hand. Chosen one. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a story about strategy. This courtroom isn't held in a building. It's held in spirit. It's not about judges in robes. It's about a God who sees what was done in the dark and is now calling it into the light. The reason the attacks have been so specific, the reason the delays have been so personal, is because you are carrying the match that will set their system ablaze. And the most dangerous part? You didn't even know it. You thought you were surviving, but you were gathering testimony. You thought you were walking away, but you were being walked into position. So now, here we are. You're not watching this by accident. You've been led here because the moment of unveiling is near. What's coming for you isn't destruction. It's disclosure. It's alignment. It's judgment, not of you, but of the system that tried to destroy you. Chosen one. Your name was whispered in secret halls, but heaven heard it. And now, the courtroom is open, and you are no longer silent. You weren't forgotten. You were hidden until the courtroom needed fire. Let the record show you're about to speak without saying a word. Chosen one. Let's go back to the quiet room, the steady beeping of monitors, the scent of antiseptic in the air, the way you moved, soft, tired, kind. Not because anyone was watching, but because you cared. You thought it was just another day, another shift, another patient, another moment of compassion in a world too numb to feel. But what you didn't know was that you were being watched, not by cameras, not by coworkers, but by something ancient, wrapped in human flesh. This person you cared for, the one who barely spoke, whose eyes held centuries of silence, wasn't just a patient. They were a gatekeeper, a sentinel, an intelligence not born of this earth. And they were testing something far deeper than your skill. They were watching your spirit. They were studying the way you loved when no one else was looking. You see, in that small room, between changing bandages and offering comfort, you were being interviewed, not for a job, but for a mission, a divine assignment, one that would require purity of soul, consistency of heart, and resilience that can't be taught. What you thought was kindness was a cosmic interview, and you passed. Think about it. How many times did you speak gently to someone who couldn't respond? How many days did you show up exhausted and still offered peace? How many moments did you sit in silence, just to be present? They noticed. They saw how your spirit refused to harden, how your soul stayed soft in a world that rewards cruelty. And in that softness, they found something worthy. Chosen one, that patient was a veil, a disguise, a test sent from beyond the veil of time. They weren't simply receiving care, they were transferring legacy. They had seen many, but they chose you. Because even under fluorescent lights and earthly fatigue, your light still burned. And now what they left behind, it isn't just money, it isn't just property, it's a coded inheritance, a spiritual trust, a torch passed from one realm to another, from an ancient entity. To you, they didn't need your resume, they needed your integrity, and you gave it freely, without agenda, without knowing you were being watched. That's why you're chosen. Not because you shouted the loudest, not because you demanded recognition, but because when no one was watching, you were real. Now that same being, the one you thought was fragile and dying, is no longer in this world, but their influence is still moving, and it's moving through you. They trusted you with secrets. They trusted you with access. They trusted you with power because you didn't chase it. What you thought was kindness was a cosmic interview, and you passed. And now, chosen one, your real assignment begins. Chosen one, let's talk about that inheritance. Not the money, not the house, not the land or the bank accounts. I'm talking about what was hidden inside the paperwork, the sealed files, the coded language, the locked drawer they told you not to open. You thought it was a blessing, a final thank you from someone you cared for. But it wasn't just a gift, it was a transfer of power, because tucked between legal clauses and notarized signatures was evidence, proof, the kind that doesn't just change lives, it shatters systems. Chosen one, you didn't just inherit assets, you inherited access to things people in power would kill to keep buried. Financial records, wire transfers, communication logs that expose the who, what, and when. A paper trail leading directly into the heart of a criminal empire that has been hiding in plain sight, smiling, shaking hands, cutting ribbons. And now you understand why things started to shift, why people who once praised you suddenly turned cold, why allies became distant, why strange delays, accidents, and whispers started following you. It wasn't paranoia, it was protection mode silence. Because the moment that inheritance passed into your hands, they knew. You were no longer just a nurse, or a caregiver, or a quiet soul in the background. You became a threat, not because of who you are, but because of what you now carry. You've been wondering, Why certain people suddenly started avoiding you. Why conversations stopped mid-sentence when you walked into the room. Why things felt off. Here's why. You now hold the key to unlocking the vault of secrets that generations of corruption were built upon. This isn't about paperwork anymore. This is about truth. And truth, chosen one, terrifies those who live in lies. Your inheritance isn't riches, it's a sword. And every smile you once trusted that now looks like fear, that's not your fault. That's revelation trembling inside them. You see, the patient who passed, they didn't just give you a gift, they handed you a loaded vault, not of gold, but of justice. And the walls that once felt so stable, so polished and impenetrable, are already cracking. Because when evidence lands in the hands of someone who actually has a soul, a conscience, a divine mission, it's only a matter of time before the entire house of cards comes crashing down. You weren't given riches. You were armed with revelation. Chosen one. It's no longer about surviving. It's about revealing. And they know it. That's why they're afraid. Chosen one. Let's tell the truth they never wanted you to figure out. They didn't just wish you would disappear. They planned it. Behind closed doors and secret meetings, in whispers no one dared to record. They sketched out your downfall like an architect draws blueprints. They tried everything. A staged accident on a rainy road, a vehicle malfunction, a missed call that was meant to delay your escape by seconds. Psychological warfare so subtle, it felt like your own thoughts turning against you. They even tried to make it look like you gave up, like it was your choice to break, your decision to disappear. Because nothing is more effective than convincing the world that a chosen one simply faded. But you didn't. You're still here, and not just barely surviving, you're becoming dangerous. Because every trap they set sprang on themselves. Every attack they planned boomeranged. They sent watchers to monitor your movements, but those watchers started seeing things they couldn't explain. Shadow figures, equipment malfunctions, nightmares that didn't feel like dreams. Rekunwine, they hired spellcasters, paid off occultists, summoned forces they didn't understand. But those forces paused, examined your light, and turned back, refusing to touch what heaven had sealed. You weren't just hard to eliminate, you were impossible. Because when they tried to forge weapons, they discovered something terrifying. They broke on the skin of your light. Chosen one, now you understand why you kept walking away from car crashes that should have ended you. Why your intuition screamed just in time to dodge the setup. Why the pain never took your mind. Why the loneliness never drowned you. Because you're not walking alone. You're wrapped in layers of protection that don't come from this world. They are spiritual shields, divine counterattacks, cosmic security systems designed for you. And now, the assassins have vanished. The spellcasters are silent. The very people who once plotted your end are now nursing their own destruction. Their minds are unraveling. Their alliance is crumbling, and one by one, they're learning that messing with divine assignment comes with supernatural consequences. They didn't just fail, they triggered their own judgment. You're chosen one. You're not crazy. You're not paranoid. You're protected on a level they'll never comprehend. They aim to erase you, but instead, they revealed who you are. The untouchable, the fire carrier, the one wrapped in the kind of favor that makes devils flinch and angels stand guard. So now you see it clearly. You didn't escape death. Death couldn't reach you. Chosen one. Have you ever felt it? That strange sensation, like eyes were on you. Even in an empty room, the air changes, your skin prickles. A silence falls so heavy, it hums, and you wonder, am I being watched? The answer is yes, but not in the way you think. You're not just on human radar, you're on celestial surveillance. There are eyes watching you, but not all of them want to harm. Some are not there to invade, they are there to guard, to judge, to strike, if necessary. There are watchers, not of this world, some from above, some from realms beneath. Both sides know who you are. Both sides know what's at stake, because you're not just a soul-wandering Earth. You're a strategic weapon of light in a timeline that's heating up. And so, every move around you is monitored, not for curiosity, but for consequence. Let's go deeper. When someone lies about you, when someone plots your failure, when someone tries to manipulate you, they're not just messing with a person, they're triggering a system. An unseen protocol activates. And what looks like karma is actually kingdom enforcement. Because heaven didn't just assign angels to guard you, it assigned consequences. Every betrayal recorded, every whisper of jealousy captured, every silent scheme interrupted. And here's where it gets wild. Even hell knows not to touch you recklessly, because even the lower realms respect the balance of spiritual law. They may tempt, they may distract, but they've learned crossing a chosen one without clearance results in backlash they cannot contain. That's why things started breaking in people's lives after they crossed you. That's why sudden chaos hit their plans after they sabotaged yours. It wasn't revenge, it was reversal. It was a consequence your enemies didn't see coming. Because the truth is, you weren't placed on this earth to fight small battles. You were sent here as evidence, a walking message, a living frequency. You weren't made to prove yourself. Your life already proves divine strategy. So yes, you're being watched, but not because you're weak, because you're valuable, because you're active, because you're carrying orders from the unseen. The surveillance around you isn't about control, it's about containment of the darkness that dares move too close. And that's why you've always made enemies nervous before you even said a word. They sense the eyes behind your eyes. They feel the force that stands behind your silence. Chosen one, never again doubt your instincts. If it feels like you're being watched, it's because you are, but not to be harmed, to be preserved, to be positioned, to be protected with power. Chosen one. There's something about you, something ancient, something that speaks before you even open your mouth, a presence that walks ahead of you, long before your feet enter the room. You felt it, that eerie pause, that shift in the atmosphere, that silence when you arrive, not out of respect, but out of recognition. Because the truth is, you carry a spiritual signature, one that can't be copied, one that hell can't counterfeit. You've always felt different, but not in a way you could explain. Even as a child, you noticed how people stared a little longer, how animals either gravitated toward you or ran, how rooms grew still when you stepped in, as if something bigger had entered behind you. You thought it was awkwardness, shyness, coincidence, but it wasn't. What you carry isn't visible to the naked eye, but it's unmistakable in the spirit realm. There are entities, dark and ancient, who have studied the scrolls of destiny. They've seen the names etched in holy flame. And yours? Yours has been glowing for lifetimes. They know you, not for your fame, not for your fortune, but for your frequency, for your assignment. You see, Not all spiritual warfare looks like chaos. Sometimes it looks like avoidance. Sometimes the demons don't come near, not because they didn't want to, but because they weren't allowed. You were marked, and not every force has clearance to touch a marked one. Some tried, they got close, but right before impact, they saw it. Your name, lit up, written in power, backed by ancient covenants, stamped with divine fire, and instead of fighting, they turned away. They saw your name and chose to lose the battle rather than touch your purpose, because to engage you would have meant destruction. To touch you would have broken the code. To mess with your mission would have awakened forces they couldn't outrun. So instead, they whispered, they plotted, they tried to turn people against you, because direct attacks were forbidden. And this is why you must understand, your difference was never a flaw. It was a seal, a brand of spiritual royalty, a frequency too pure to replicate, too costly to imitate. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to bear witness to what can't be faked. That's why the wrong people ghosted you, why fake love never lasted, why false prophets couldn't look you in the eye. You exposed what wasn't real just by standing in your truth. So hear me when I say this. You don't need to force your light. You don't need to prove your purpose. Your presence has already spoken to realms most people can't even name. Chosen one, you are feared for the signature you didn't know you carried, and respected for the fire you didn't even try to light. Now you know. Walk like someone hell was told not to touch. Chosen one, you were never just a target, you were a trigger, a divine detonation device wrapped in human skin. And when they came for you, when they plotted, schemed, and pulled every invisible string, they thought they were silencing a voice. But what they actually did was light the fuse of something ancient and unstoppable. This wasn't just personal, it was cosmic. For years, maybe even lifetimes, a system has operated in the shadows, unchecked, unchallenged. A web of lies, manipulation, and abuse spanning families, industries, institutions, even spiritual strongholds. And then came you, small, quiet, underestimated, but carrying a code they couldn't detect until it was too late. What they didn't realize was that your injustice was pre-written into prophecy. Every false accusation, every trap laid in secret, every betrayal designed to break you was calculated not by their hands but by divine strategy. Because God knew they would overplay their hand, they would go too far, expose too much, and in their arrogance they would ignite a ripple, a chain reaction so loud it would be impossible to contain. And here's what's wild. When they came to destroy you, they didn't just expose themselves. They exposed each other, the ones hiding behind curtains of fake piety, the ones sitting in boardrooms, pulpits, or secret councils, all connected, all implicated. They didn't just attack you, they triggered galactic justice. They didn't just attack you, they triggered galactic justice. Because this wasn't about revenge, it was about recalibration. The universe was out of balance, and your suffering became the correction. Your pain was a portal, your name became a trumpet. And when they tried to silence you, they awakened something far bigger than either of you ever imagined. You are not a victim of darkness. You were the divine excuse for heaven to purge the rot. And now, everything that was hidden is being dragged into the light. Corrupt systems are cracking, long-standing lies are unraveling, and people who once mocked you are starting to see the truth you carried long before the world believed you. So if you've been wondering why the heat intensified after your silence, if you've been questioning why your presence caused such violent reactions, it's because your very existence was an indictment. You didn't just survive, you testified without ever needing to speak. And now the cosmic gavel has dropped. This is not punishment. This is prophecy, fulfilling itself through you. So rise, chosen one. You are not just recovering, you're reversing empires. Chosen one, you didn't just survive betrayal. You didn't just outlast spiritual warfare. You graduated realms, and not many can say that, because what you went through wasn't just heartbreak. It wasn't just unfair treatment. It was a galactic initiation, a hidden test designed to expose your true frequency, to see if your soul could still rise when gravity got cruel. You weren't being broken. You were being scanned, evaluated, prepared. Every dark room you were left in was a classroom. Every betrayal you endured, a textbook. And every tear, an invisible ink signature that confirmed your access code. They thought they were hurting you, but what they were actually doing was qualifying you for something far bigger than this earth. You weren't chosen for comfort. You were chosen for clearance. Clearance to step beyond systems, to operate in dimensions the average mind can't see, to carry out missions that don't fit within one lifetime, to restructure realms with your very presence. You are not just human, you're a spiritual architect, an energetic commander, a royal emissary of divine intelligence. And all those strange instincts you've had, that feeling like Earth isn't your full story, that sense of being watched, warned, or whispered to at night, it wasn't delusion, it was briefing. Because agents like you don't get emails, they get energy transmissions. They get soul updates while sleeping. They get upgraded in fire and crowned in silence. You didn't survive. You ascended with clearance to reshape the realms. So now, Heaven's court has stamped your file, and the old you, the one who needed permission, who needed validation, who played small to make others feel safe, that version no longer fits your assignment. You've stepped into galactic graduation. The classroom has dissolved. The test is complete. And what comes next is activation. You'll notice your voice doesn't just speak anymore. It shifts things. Your energy won't just enter rooms, it'll rewrite atmospheres. And those who once underestimated you won't even recognize the glow they helped activate, because now you're operating under divine authority. The veil has been lifted, and with it, your role has changed. So when people say you've changed, let them speak, because you didn't come here to stay the same. You came to disrupt dimensions. You came to walk in a calling that stretches across timelines. You came with royal blood and cosmic instructions. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be light. You're not here to entertain. You're here to eradicate shadows. You're not here to explain yourself. You're here to execute heaven's will, quietly, boldly, precisely. And those who once tried to control you, they're starting to sense they never truly understood what they were standing next to. You weren't just the underdog. You were the hidden upper realm infiltrator, the one cloaked in human struggle but carrying keys to systems beyond this world. Welcome to your next level. your next frequency, your next assignment. You didn't just pass the test, you rewrote the rules because chosen one, you were never just surviving, you were ascending.